special needs siblings and the Sibling Leadership Network. So my name is Lisa Matthews, and I'm the DC chapter representative for the Sibling Leadership Network and board member as well. I also am a sibling. I have a brother that has autism, and that has what generally brought me into this space, which in many cases brought many of you as well. I'm excited to co-host these events along with Emily Hall, who's the director of the Sibling Support Project, who is instrumental in having these events to even be possible, along with Jeniece Dortch, who is the executive director of the Special Needs Siblings. These events, they actually would not have even happened if Jeniece did not have what we generally call as an uncomfortable conversation with Emily after attending a SIP shop facilitator training that was supported by the Sibling Support Project. Many of you will see Jeniece towards the end of this event, who will facilitate questions from the audience. So I want to make sure that if you have any questions as we are going through this event, to please put them in the chat, and Jeniece will be sure to get to as many of them as we can for our panelists. We also will provide you with an email and a survey at the end of this event, a resource document where you could learn more about all of these different organizations, as well as others that we think are important for you. So before we begin, I wanted to share just what I feel the impact of these roundtables have been so far, because we've done 4 of them now since November of 2020. We've been able to welcome 20 panelists in this space to open their hearts and share their stories about their families and their experiences of being siblings in the BIPOC community, and what challenges that they've had in just feeling that they've been isolated, not isolated necessarily, but just working in silos and trying to help deal with different things with families and their brothers or sisters with disabilities. And what I have found is that in being part of these discussions, that we're learning that we're not alone, that there's so many other people that equally have shared experiences here. And I can assure you all that you will resonate with a story that will come from any of these individuals tonight, and enjoy just being a part of these conversations as we have been. I wanted to also say that from the work that we've been able to do, we have the Sibling Leadership Network conference that's going to happen 1 month from today, June 18th and the 19th. And we have 9 panelists that have been part of these roundtable discussions that will play a role during these conferences. And we hope that you guys will be able to attend. I believe Emily will drop a link in the chat for the conference for you all to be able to register for the event. And I know that it's going to be an amazing virtual conference, and we look forward to being able to have many of you to be a part of it. So let me just get started by just introducing our panelists for the evening. Ife, can you pronounce your name for me? I just don't want to mess it up. You gave it to me so quickly earlier. I just want to make sure that we get this right.
That's fine. It's Ifeoma, Philippa, Peterkins-Itoe, but you can call me Ife.
Ife, thank you so much. So Ife, she's a human rights activist, a special needs advocate, and a dual qualified lawyer of England and Nigeria. She is the founder of the Siblings of Special Needs Foundation, which is a national, non-governmental, and nonpartisan civil society organization in honor of persons with special developmental needs and their families. We also have Heather Shin, who's an oncology social worker through the Swedish Cancer Institute. She is a first-generation Korean American with over 6 years experience working with vulnerable adults and individuals with disabilities in various settings, which include adult day health programs, hospitals, schools, shelters, and out in the community. Jacqueline Moreno is a board-certified behavior analyst and one of the founding members of the California Sibling Leadership Network, where she still serves on the board. She's worked in the field of applied behavior analyst for about 13 years, and she currently works at a private agency as a senior behavior analyst. Elena Marte has been a special needs educator for 10 years in the Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
Lisa, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We're having trouble hearing you.
Just slide up a bit. Thank you. Okay, so Elena has been a special needs educator for 10 years in the Miami-Dade County school system. She is a PhD candidate at Florida International University, studying exceptional student education, and one day desires to open a nonprofit organization in a low-income neighborhood to provide free services for individuals with special needs in the community, as well as counseling for their families. So now let's get to why we're here. Tonight's moderator, Richard Mullen, who is also a panelist for our very first BIPOC Sibling Roundtable event. He joined us for our last event as moderator and did such an amazing job that we had to have him to return tonight. Richard works for the Arc of King County in Seattle, Washington as an African-American family support counselor, meeting families and helping them navigate systems of support in the disability service system. Before I get started, just want to quickly say again to please put any questions that you have in the chat, and Jeniece will share them with you towards the end of the panel. Again, thank you guys for spending time with us this evening for this important continued conversation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited. I've been so excited. I'm excited now, hence the energy, but I've been excited to just continue to have these conversations. I would say to all the panelists just out the gate, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being willing to share about who you are and your experience and your story. I count it as a blessing to actually even have a space like this where we can talk about being a sibling. I don't think that it's been my experience it hasn't been my experience where I haven't experienced a lot of spaces, is what I'm saying, that the topic is, how does the sibling feel, right? What is your story? How did this affect you, And so I just want to say thank you so much for being courageous. And for everyone viewing, I appreciate you for coming and being a part of the community and showing your support. It is valuable. It's so very valuable. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump in. So, okay, now let me just kind of lay out the ground rules. This is not like a fight night situation, but I'm going to ask some questions, and after this first question, I'm going to ask some questions, and everyone doesn't have to answer every question, but we can kind of do it popcorn style. If you just feel the need to just jump in, jump right in, and we'll just keep that momentum going. So we want this to be as natural as possible. All right. So I know that we just got those amazing introductions. Lisa did such a great job. But if we could do just a 1-minute intro on, and this is everyone, just a 1 minute intro on who you are, that would really be great. It just adds more context. Can we do that? All right. And I know once you start going that 1 minute, it's like 2 minutes, 10 minutes, so let's try to keep it, reel it in, because we want to, we want to get all the goods, right? So let's start with Heather. Heather, who are you?
Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you so much for having me. Like Richard has mentioned, there's not a whole lot of spaces for SIBs to just kind of tell their stories. So thank you so much for having me, and I feel really honored to be amongst SIBs and parents and folks as well. My name is Heather Shin. I use she, her pronouns. I live on the stolen Coast Salish land, specifically the ancestral land of the Duwamish tribe, which is also known as Seattle, Washington. Lisa mentioned that I am an oncology social worker for Swedish Cancer Institute. I have a younger brother named Spencer, who is on the autism spectrum disorder. We're about 17 months apart, and he lives with my parents about 30 minutes east of Seattle. He's going to turn 26 this year. Oh my gosh. He loves watching Disney films, and prior to COVID-19, he really enjoyed participating in various sports through Special Olympics. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Heather. And yes, please share about your sibling. We would love to hear about he or she as well. So Elaine, would you like to go next?
Sure. So yes, my name is Elena. I'm from Miami, Florida. I have a 30-year-old brother named Christopher with autism and epilepsy. I also have 2 sons who are also on the spectrum. Besides my son, or alongside my sons, my brother is my everything. He's essentially nonverbal and depends on us for a lot of his daily living functions, and he's very unaware of his surroundings. He needs help communicating and just needs 24/7 care. Right now, he is in a living facility, and that's something that I had mentioned to Richard before that I did want to bring up in the chat, and just allow that space for that conversation to happen, because there is a lot of guilt and sense of failure that goes into having to make that choice, but it ended up being the right choice for us for now. It's not my long-term goal for him. The goal is that he'll be with me and my boys and my family. And, you know, I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to keep it short because I know there's a lot of conversation to be happening, but thank you so much for this space. This is the first time in 31 years that I've had this, and I'm very appreciative. So nice to meet you guys.
Elena, thank you so much for sharing that and being here. We really appreciate you. Jacqueline.
Yes, hi. I also want to echo the thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here to get to talk with everyone and to learn from everyone else's stories. I am a BCBA, so my sister Jessica really influenced my life and career choice to go into the field as a service provider. And she is going to be 30 this year. So she is 29. She lives with my parents at home, and she is on the waiting list for a group home. And to also kind of echo Elena's, or not echo, but to kind of piggyback on that discussion point, yeah, there is a lot of feelings and emotions around that decision. So that's, you know, definitely something that we can discuss and share. But yeah, I live here in LA, born and raised in Pasadena, pretty much in LA my whole life. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here.
Well, Jacqueline, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Iffy.
Hi, Richard.
Hey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Iffy. I'm just going to stick to my short name so everyone is okay with it. And don't worry, we'll have all the time where you can pronounce my name, and I will make sure everyone gets it. So my name is Iffy. I'm a dual qualified lawyer and a Shin advocate. So I'm an inclusive activist on steroids. Everything I do has to do around persons with disability. It has to do with, especially with my government. So I live in a very non-mainstream government. I live in Nigeria now. I grew up in the UK, but I live in Nigeria now. So we're still on that verge of bringing issues and conversations like autism into our society. So it's very new. There's a lot of information about it, but we're still thriving. So my younger sister is basically the reason why I do what I do. She's 26, her name is Sandra, and I'm officially her legal guardian. But as of recent, I got married. So she's with my parents now for the honeymoon phase, and then we're gonna come back to that. So it's been an amazing journey for me. And I mean, having to listen to every single person is exactly what it is that I live for now, having these conversations. I never had this growing up. And what, organizations such as the Sibling Leadership Network have is what we're trying to build now in Nigeria and within the African space. So for me, it's really great when I come into conversations like this. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and you're so very welcome. We just really appreciate having you here with us.
Thank you.
Well, so what that was the icebreaker. You see how that, see now everyone on the panel's loose. You got to talk, you got to get in a little bit. I felt you guys wanting to go in a little further. So thank you for just, the Cliff Note version. But okay, so let's just really jump into this. So I'm also a sibling. And unfortunately, my brother, Stephen, he passed away when I was 14 years old. He was 24, I was 14 years old. And, you're always affected when someone passes away in your family who you really love. And it's just, I have 3 brothers. And so we were tight knit, and I was the youngest, and just, it really just, yeah, I didn't realize how much it had affected me until I actually gotten older, in hindsight, looked back and said, wow, a lot of who I am is shaped by, my interactions with my brother Stephen, of course, my other brothers, but with my brother Stephen. And so, that's, I would say what's brought me to where I am today, as far as having a real heart for the disability community and families, and supporting their specific needs. But what I found in the supporting the needs is that I found it really, like, I don't know, it just something, it triggered me when the sibling conversation came up, because I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'm one of the, okay. Not many people have asked me about how this has affected me. So when that door got opened up, I said, oh, we in here, we about to share now. And so, just want to say again, thank you for being here and being so open. So first question I'd like to lean into is, how did you guys realize or experience or begin to acknowledge or learn that your loved one had a disability? I know in my family, it wasn't a situation where it was, or we had to sit down and it was, Richard, just want to let you know, your brother has a disability. In my upbringing, he was in the mix with us. Like, I'm sorry, CPS, but he was getting whoopings just alongside us, when we got out of line. My mom just did not play. And so just there was real equality in the house. And so I really didn't learn that there was something, particularly different until we would go outside of the house. And kids can be very cruel, and especially when they don't understand different things about people. And so we were kind of defenders for our brother, and it started to pique those questions about, okay, I am noticing some things, but still it wasn't an actual conversation that our parents were having. So can we talk about that, just that experience early on? And anyone can jump in.
Sure. I can start.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I, kind of similar to Richard, I was 18 months old, actually, when my sister was adopted as a 6-week-old baby, but she wasn't diagnosed with autism until she was 2. And a lot of the typical symptoms had developed, so no eye contact, no speech, not any like motor functioning, very delayed motor functioning, and she is extremely impacted. So technically non-vocal, non-verbal, very aggressive, lots of self-injurious behavior. So I don't remember a time that I didn't know something was different. But I do, you know, unfortunately, I think my part of the cultural upbringing was this very deeply entrenched Mexican Catholicism that translated to there's a reason for everything. She's like an angel that came to teach us and help us in certain ways and to make us stronger. So you can't be upset at her because she doesn't know what she's doing. So that I was aware of that distinction. And I think for me, you know, as working through growing up, I think when I was younger, there was a lot of resentment because of that. It just felt like I wasn't allowed to be upset. I wasn't allowed to be embarrassed because she didn't know what she was doing. She's autistic, and you know, there's a reason, and just pray for strength. And I'm like, yeah, but she broke my toy.
Yeah.
Like I'm really mad.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a time that I was like, oh, she's autistic. It was just this like, she's different and family treats her differently. And I just kind of had to accept that growing up. Yeah.
I see Heather's unmuted. Did you want to say something, Heather?
Yeah, I don't think my parents ever sat me down and, you know, told me, hey, your brother has autism. I just remember from a really young age, not really thinking any differently. But like you said, Richard, you know, in the house, everything was the same. But as soon as we went out, you know, there were like outbursts, there were crying. You know, we would be told by restaurant staff members that due to like excessive shouting and crying that, you know, we needed to leave. Yeah, and then just I think it was my very first sib shop that I attended in like 2nd and 3rd grade was like when I finally put a name to the diagnosis, and I was like, oh, it's because he has autism and this is why X, Y, and Z is happening. But yeah, like you said, I never was sat down with an actual formal diagnosis. I remember, you know, attending, you know, like OT, PT, speech therapy, after school lessons with my mom and my brother. And I would ask my mom, you know, like, my brother's playing on the, like, in the sensory room. Why can't I play? And she was like, no, that's not for you. But it was never any, it's his therapy. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I would say, like, just, you know, in my experience, also just one thing that you said, Jacqueline, is just as far as like that aspect of, you know, your loved one being like an angel or like this blessing, like just, you know, heavy compensation in that area. You know, I had come to find out later on that, you know, my mother, she felt that it was a punishment. She thought that, you know, our brother was this way because of something that she had done in her life, which then led her to like just completely embrace like all the things you could see her just taking on so much. You know, my father was in the home as well, but she was just like, you know, an advocate on steroids. And I think there was just a level of guilt there. And so it was, you know, like Heather, how you're talking about being in the community, like my mom was the first to like resolve an issue if we're out in the, you know, she's like the first one to start filling in the blanks for servers and you know, answering for our brother. And so as a sibling, I just remember looking at that as just complete favoritism, just like, man, you know, you're getting all the protection basically, you know, but if I get out of line, oh, I'm in trouble, you know, because it's just still not really being able to put everything in its proper places around disability and barriers and things of that nature. So, you know, that's, you know, interesting part of my story. Did anyone else want to share about when okay, Elena?
Sure. So I feel like there was never a point that I didn't know Like I knew how to explain autism at like 4 years old. And I think it's just because my parents just talked about it so much, which was a great thing. But at the same time, it was something that I internalized so much of my feelings because I knew I wasn't allowed to express them. Not allowed to express them, but I shouldn't, because my parents were already dealing with so much with my brother. So, you know, it was always like, you know, if he did something, it was like, I needed to stay quiet about it. And I was okay with that. And I grew up okay with that. You know, it was, I think later on where I kind of like had more realization to how much I internalized those feelings. But I also noticed more with like my social groups, like my friends, you know, when I was 6 or 7, my neighborhood friends, I would meet their siblings and I would say, oh, well, does your brother have autism? And they're like, what's that? You know, and I'm trying to explain something that's so inexplicable. Yeah. And it's like, well, my brother does silly things and my brother does that. My brother, and it's like, it's not the same, you know, and it's really hard to connect with others growing up when they really can't understand what it is that you're going through, you know. And I can totally relate to the stories of the tantrums and the crying and the aggression and the self-interest behavior. And when you try to share that with somebody, it's almost as if they feel sorry for you. And it's like, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I just want you to like understand that this is something that's my life. Like I can't change it, you know. And they come from a good place, but I was the only one. Like I've met maybe one person in high school that had a sibling with autism, and our brothers were actually in the same classroom. It was kind of crazy. And she was the complete opposite of me. Like she did not talk about it at all, you know. So when I would approach her and say, oh my gosh, your brother's in the class with my brother and this and that and this and that, she did not want to exchange, you know. And that was just her way of dealing with that. And I had to respect that. So I think I just learned from social groups that we were so, my brother was really different.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And it is really interesting how we have our home dynamic, and then the world kind of like it just kind of finds us, and then we have to cope with that, not even knowing that we're coping with something, because a lot of times as a sibling we don't feel as the focus is really on us. I can say that just in growing up, my parents asked me how I was doing, but never really asked me about how I was doing in connection to what I was experiencing going on with my brother, right? You almost kind of felt ashamed to ask those questions, you know, and honestly, as a youth, or, you know, or even older, you don't really even know what to ask. Like right now, we all have some form of understanding, or we're a professional in a field or what have you, but I'm 40 going on 41, and you know, it wasn't until this year that, you know, I began to have these conversations, right? And those are conversations with my parents, but then just being welcomed into this space, you know, so it's just really interesting how, you know, we can all have an experience in it and we learn about it as we go. But again, this is why we're doing this. We're having these conversations because we want to be able to look back and find similarities and find strength in other people's story. Like I'm encouraged when I hear everyone here speak about their story. So on the topic of story, what would we say, what benefit, like what opportunities or how are we affected in a positive way for regarding having a brother or sister who has a form of disability? Can we weigh in on that? Like, and you know, not everyone has to have like this, you know, well thought out answer, but I think for me, I'm very accepting of people for just who they are. I think that was instilled in me at an early age because of my brother Stephen. and you have that outside influence and kind of the cruel side of things, but because that was my brother, I just developed in trying to see the person, right? That was what I was always trying to. This is my brother who I love. I'm just trying to see him for just who he is and be there and be a brother. Can we share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna take that on first, and then sorry, just to mention, because it's almost 2 a.m. where I am.
Okay.
So if I do log out later, just know it's because of the time difference. But I'm happy to stay on as long as I can.
Absolutely.
For me, it's been really positive. So I grew up with a lot of empathy for people generally, and right now, with what we're doing in Nigeria and in the UK, it's no longer about my sister. It's bigger than my sister. We're having to impact a whole generation, a whole community of siblings within the African continent now, having to open up these conversations that, we never had growing up. I never had a conversation from anyone around about sip shops or having to, take on a sibling role or just any kind of resources. Now I know it was available, but it just wasn't available in my community or in that aspect. So everything I do now, I hold on more to the positive than the negative, because I know how much impact it is having now. And it's important that I do hold on to the positive, because it's so easy for you to just negate to the negative. It's so easy. The society isn't one that is accepting. There's still a lot of taboos here. There's still a lot of misconceptions about autism. There's a lot of spirituality about autism within the African continent. So you just have to hold on to what is positive. And having to see organizations in the US and the UK and Australia, having this impact, we know now what it can do for a better generation. We know now how much, effect it is. So having to put our conversation out there, put our information out there, support siblings, bring them out. It's amazing. It's amazing. We have an adult section of my organization of people that like you never even knew, oh, I'm a sibling.
Yeah.
This applies to me. And now you're having to talk about it. And they're like, wait, hold on. All this information was always there, and we're coming from a generation of parents that nobody talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were one of the odd parents, because at the time when my sister was never diagnosed. She was actually misdiagnosed a lot of times here when we were living in Nigeria. So they didn't have a name for it. They just knew, okay, this is her condition and we will eventually get it. But now growing up, I realized I had friends and I had family members that either had a sister or a brother with autism or Down syndrome or cerebral palsy, but nobody talked about it. So we were always the odd ones out, because we were seen as very liberal. And oh yeah, they want to talk about it, they want to put it out there. But now I have people coming on to say, oh, the way you championed this helped me. And I knew someone else was doing this. So for me, it's been a really positive ride.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so along with that, and this is just for the sake of balance, I guess, what would you say some of the, just some of the hardships were, maybe in how you connect with your parents, or maybe how you connect with friends who may come over for a sleepover, or I know that like in my family, we were taught how to do everything. So, cook, clean, laundry, all that, but you also, you had to watch out for your brother, and I was the youngest. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic, because I'm used to like being the one that's always being watched after. But then there were times where they're like, Richard, when you go, you got to take your brother Steven and you got to watch out. And we got into some pretty, just some pretty interesting scenarios, just because it was just like, if I don't handle this right and we go home, it could be a problem. And so can we talk about that? Just some of the challenges that we might have faced that we just didn't get to talk about.
Yeah, I can speak to that. One of the things I mentioned before was there was this resentment about feeling like she was treated differently, or, I couldn't be upset at her. And I think it didn't take, it really, I couldn't see the benefits probably until high school or even college, as to the way that growing up with Jessica had impacted me. Because as a kid, the benefit was, well, we got to go in line at all the Disney rides through the exit, and that was cool. But I think it really did teach me to advocate for myself, for people who couldn't. I'm a BCBA in the field. I talk to parents all the time about, like, who's your kid despite whatever the doctors say. Yes, I'm here because of a diagnosis, but what do you love about them? What are they? Funny? Are they silly? Are they sweet? Tell me about your kiddo other than the disability, and the empathy for people and their quirks. And to go back and to speak to some of the challenges, I think, again, the challenge for me has also been connecting to my parents on that level. I'm the oldest in a, again, very deeply Mexican Catholic family. And so there were a lot of expectations for the oldest daughter. I was in a parenting role for my sister fairly early on. But there was always this line in the sand of, don't question how we parent. You will have to babysit. You will have to push her wheelchair, push her stroller. Like, you can, you'll have to help with the bathroom and the shower, etc. But don't question how we parent. We have set up this for her future, and this is going to be how you handle it. And we've set everything up. Don't question it. It is what it is. And for my own kind of peace of mind and benefit, I have just let my parents do their thing. She's on the waiting list for a group home, but my sister had actually expressed, because she communicates via a communication device, that she wanted to go to a group home back when she was a teenager. And my mom was very resistant. She did not want to. She said, it's like sending a puppy back to a pound. And we were like, we don't think so. But, I'm going off to college. This is kind of like her version of that. But it was, no, this is our decision. We're making this decision. Don't question it. So there is just this kind of acceptance, I guess, like allowance on my part, if that is what they're doing. And I will continue to do what I need to do if they ask for my help. I'm here for her. But, that's been part of the challenge too, of like growing up feeling very resentful, kind of coming around and being, wow, she really influenced me. I want to do all these things and help her. And then being like, nope, you're her sister. This is your role. This is our role. Don't question it. We're still alive. Thank you very much. And just kind of, okay. So navigating through all of that, I think, has been my story.
Yeah.
Of like how it's gone.
No, that brings up a really good, those are really good points around like future planning, right? I like, unfortunately, I don't personally have to have those conversations, but just with everything that you experienced, I can only imagine, okay, wanting a sense of independence at certain points of your life, but then also have to be in the conversation that's connected to, okay, when my parents transition, now who's taking care of my brother or sister, right? And so for you, Jacqueline, it was kind of like that struggle of like, okay, there's that clash, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna just play my position then, you know. But you know, as everyone gets older, you know, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that you probably come back into that role of having more of a voice to say, okay, I have a say in this, like this is my family. Are we having conversations as siblings? Are we having conversations like that? Like, are we talking about the future and who's going to care for our loved ones? Let's talk about that. Elena?
So again, like my parents are very transparent. They've just always been that way, and it's been instilled in me since I was a kid. Your responsibility is to take care of him. You need to go to college, you need to get a good job, you need to make money because you're going to be supporting your family, and we're going to leave you whatever we have for him. And that's just something that I've carried with me my whole life. Even if my parents go on a trip and they're in a plane, I have the passwords to everything in case something happens, that I can take care of him. Like, it's just always that mentality of, Chris, how are we doing what I've never done the skydiving. I've never been the thriller, the thing like that, because I'm like, I have a brother to take care of, you know, and that's before I had kids. So it's just like those adrenaline rush things, and you know, I've stayed away from that because every decision that I've made in my life is how do I need to, very morbidly, how this is going to sound, but how do I need to outlive him? What do I need to do to stay healthy? You know, how am I going to keep myself out of danger? Because he needs me. Even, you know, my kids, they're high, you know, and I hate the word high functioning or this, you know, the disability doesn't impact them as much as it impacts my brother. He's going to need me until I'm gray and old, you know, and it's just, what am I going to do to keep myself safe for him? And it's just very innate. It's very natural. And I've had that conversation with my parents since a very long time, you know, since forever. So.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I would look at that as an advantage, just to have that clarity, right? To know, you know, okay, this is the direction I'm going in as far as supporting. But also I kind of feel like there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that, you know, like, you know, you really didn't ask for that, you know? And so it's like, you know, as a sibling.
And I think adding the fact that I have, you know, my 2 sons have autism. So, and maybe it doesn't resonate yet and it hasn't hit me, but I think one thing my brother has showed me is how I need to move forward.
Yeah.
You know, my brother has, from his epilepsy, gone into a coma and flatlined, you know, and they brought him back. So I think every challenge that he's given me has shown how I need to move forward and what can I do next to just better myself for him at the end of the day. And for my kids, and even as an ESD teacher, you know, I get, Elena, you're so unfazed by this. And I'm like, maybe it seems that way. And internally, like, I've just become this person that I internalize things. And later I'm like, you know, I get embarrassed easily. It's probably because, you know, from people looking at me so much growing up with my brother through a tantrum, that I'm embarrassed easily. Like, things start to click later, like maybe I'm this way because of this happening. And I become more metacognitive of how his disability has affected me the older I get. And I'm still learning, but I've just dealt with the pressure. And as much as I haven't asked for it, I just know it's what I have to do, and it's what I want to do, and it's what's right to do by him.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Ify, can I ask you, just, I mean, the beauty of the BIPOC roundtable discussion is that we get to talk about like our ethnic and cultural background, and like how that has shaped us and how we experience the world around us because of who we are. Culturally, can you talk to us about how, like in your culture, is it expected for you as a sibling to take care of your loved one? Is that an automatic expectation? growing up, or just in the family dynamic?
In some areas it is. In my own family, it isn't. I think we're very maternal on this end. So most people would automatically expect that you take care of your siblings. And there's a lot of burden to that. And especially if you do not even know what you're doing. Because I come across a lot of siblings that, that has just translated, especially like what Elena is saying, it's almost a thing in the family, even if it's not been said, you just know, oh, there's nobody else, it's going to fall on me. And for my own family dynamics, my parents didn't want that at all. So we grew up sort of being liberal and being independent, as my parents wanted us to be as independent as possible and just live our own lives. And funny enough, we were the kids, we navigated ourselves back to caregiving. We sort of just, we want to take care of her. We want to be there for her. I was studying journalism before I switched to law. And then I made my specialty in special needs law and disabilities. So I was already navigating towards that route of being an advocate and wanted to take care of her. And I made the decision of being her legal guardian before telling my parents. So I started off the paperwork and then I brought it up to them and they were like, no, we don't want that for you because, she's not your responsibility, but I wanted that. And I've spoken to my siblings and we had our own separate conversations about her from our parents. And because we felt we knew more in terms of research and information, and they knew more in terms of being parents. And we were just looking at future care for her. And when that decision happened, I'll be honest, I think it broke my mom's heart because she felt as though she was having to put in a responsibility that wasn't ours to start with. And for my younger sister, I've always seen her like my baby. I've always seen her like my child because we have a gap. It's about 9 years plus. And I'd never really taken her as my sister. I'd always seen her as my baby. So for me, it was almost automatic at that age because also I didn't grow up with any sort of like responsibility in terms of, oh, this is going to be your future. It was easy for me to want to go into it and take on it and, having to now explain to them and then cajole them into, oh, this is going to be okay. But then another thing I learned a couple of years ago when I put myself in that role of being her legal guardian was also that at the end of the day, I might not be the best person for her to take care of her. I needed to be okay with understanding that there might be other people that might have, better equipped information, better equipped facility, better everything to take care of her. And I had to be okay with that. And I didn't need to burden myself with being in her life or, like Elena said, outleaving her because I don't have control over that. I don't have control over that life, that life expectancy per se. So I have been channeling that and also making sure that the plans we make for her is not tied to anyone. It's the plan that is going to outlive us as well. So that's how I've been navigating it creative. But culturally, especially with people that I wouldn't say illiterate, but people that are not informed about autism, or it's almost automatic here that they would take care of your sibling.
Okay, wow. Thank you for weighing in on that. So then that leads me into this direction so let's talk about like support systems. Like, how do we come up, how are we experiencing making some of these decisions or having some of these revelations? Like if he said, she had to get to a place where she had to consider maybe this, I already had this conviction, but maybe, this isn't, maybe I might not be the best person. Like, do we have, should we put an emphasis on having a support system in our communities? do we feel like there are supports around us that are willing to have these conversations with us as we process through this, or are we feeling for the most part alone in this? Heather, would you like to start us off in that? Like just the importance around a support system in your community, culturally, or maybe just in your home?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I have a pretty strong support system. My mom, you know, my brother received a lot of his support from like a church faith-based organization that my mom has been a part of since he was really, really young. So I've just kind of grown up within that community. Yeah. But it is hard, you know, I'm the only sibling at this, you know, age range. So all the other sibs are either younger than me or older than me, and we just don't have that connection. And then also being in that community that's specifically only for Korean Americans, you know, we only have access to X, Y, and Z resources, or, you know, culturally, it may be taboo to talk about things like this. I know that my parents never really talked about my brother's diagnoses growing up because they didn't want to burden me with the information of my brother's diagnoses, and just they didn't want that disability to impact my life without even taking into consideration what I want and what I was comfortable with. So I wish I had been a part of that conversation younger. You know, now as an adult talking to my parents, they are talking about future planning and things like that. But again, it just feels so jarring because there was no conversation previous to this in my adolescent and my youth. And then now as an adult, they're like, okay, we've made all of these plans for you. Are you going to follow through with it? I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with, you know, all of these plans. I wish we would have more discussion, but also, you know, just trying to talk about things like this with traditional Asian parents, it's really hard. I mean, like you had mentioned, my mom, you know, when she found out that my brother was autistic, thought that she had done something wrong, that she was like cursed by God, or, you know, she was being punished. So there was a lot of stigma attached to that. So I think just the conversations never really happened.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because it's, I'm sure that there are others, you know, in the audience that are kind of at that place of tension where it's like, where life is happening, but like, where do I get in? Like, where can we actually start having this conversation? So, you know, I really appreciate, I know we really appreciate that aspect of, you know, a support system and how a relationship may need to develop, or in some cases, like we're all getting older. So it's like time forces us to say, okay, we've got to talk about this. Did anyone else, before we move on, did anyone else want to share about just the importance of a support system? Okay.
Yeah, I can add to that. Lisa mentioned during the bio that I was one of the founding members of California Sibling Leadership Network, because I was at a conference and heard about siblings, and I was like, wow, this is great. It was like a sibling SLN chapter out of the Midwest, I think. California didn't have one, and I was like, how do we not have one? We have UCLA right here. And so I got in contact with them, and they put me in contact with other people here, and you know, we've been going strong since like 2013 or 2014.
Wow.
Because of that, really, like, we know how important it is to have these conversations and to validate each other's experiences as what you're feeling is a-okay. Like, you know, as I mentioned, growing up, there was a very strong opinion in my family about what was okay and what wasn't to feel or to express. And, you know, my expectations or my desires may not have matched up with that. And, you know, I needed a support system to say, it's okay. That's not the life you want. And you are well within your right. You deserve the life you want. And so does your sister. You know, and it's okay if that doesn't match up. But because it's so important, I think, to talk to people who get it. And yes, your friends get it. To a certain, your friends will support you, but to talk to other sibs who also know, actually, yeah, you know, I felt a lot of resentment, or actually I felt fantastic, but I can understand why you wouldn't have felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's extremely important.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's, I can say that just working in what we would call the disability community, I have colleagues and individuals who I've become friends with who have disabilities and they live on their own. And they were supported to do that. Now, not everyone can do that, but it's interesting because, you know, when they shared their story with me, initially, it was just always assumed that you'll never have, you know, that level of independence. And yes, there are still supports for them, right? They're not out on an island, and it's not for everyone with a disability. It was barely the right thing for me. I stayed home as long as I could. But it's just, you know, having a support system can kind of help you consider what options there are and what the future could look like, and maybe help you see through lenses that you might not ordinarily look through, or help you look through the lens period because you're just not trying to go that route. So here's the thing. You guys are all so powerful, and I'm curious, what advice can we like to the younger siblings or other siblings or even older siblings, because I mean age doesn't really matter when we talk about your experience. Like what advice can we give to some of the other siblings in the room that, you know, they might just need some encouragement? Like, you know, this could be the first time they're in a room where there is a panel of people that are speaking freely about being a sibling, when in our upbringings, so often the focus is on the individual with the disability. Can we give some encouraging words and maybe some advice? Elena?
Yeah.
Or if, was that who, I'm sorry, that.
If you want to go ahead, I'll go next.
Yeah, that's fine. So first thing I would encourage every sibling on here to do, I don't know if you've done it already, but I would like everyone to just start off with forgiving their parents. It's something that I think every sibling, especially if you're an adult, like most of us that sort of like got into understanding the magnitude of, you know, who we are in our adult ages, just forgive your parents. A lot of them didn't know. They didn't know that they were supposed to have these conversations with you. They didn't know that they were supposed to also protect you the way you felt that you needed to be protected at that age, especially with, there's a lot of favoritism, there's a lot of, you know, emotions that come along for siblings of persons with special needs and disabilities. So I would really advise everyone to start from there. And if your parents are still alive, have that conversation with them. Find time, as crazy as it is, especially if you're from an African parentage, they don't want to listen. Asian parentage, yeah, it's all the same. Every other parentage, Philippa, it's all the same. Find time to have the conversation with them about, not necessarily about you, because they already have their gifts. They already have a lot of gifts. So you can do a soft landing from them. You can start with asking them simple questions like, you know, how they're feeling. I remember the first time I interviewed my mom, and it was like an hour of the both of us just crying. And my mom is the strongest person I know, and I'd never seen her react that way. So I know that a lot of parents just didn't know. They didn't have the resources to navigate. They didn't have a lot, you know, of information to navigate, and they were just trying to do what they can. So if you start from forgiving them and understanding, you know, where it comes from, it will help you. So that would be my advice. Forgive the parents and try and have a conversation with them if they're still alive, just to see how they're doing. And I know it will help you. It's going to help you. I just want you to start from there and do a soft landing. Don't do a rush. We need to have this conversation. No, just, go mellow it and try to understand from where they're coming from. And please reach out to other siblings whenever you can. And if you need any information, I mean, you have this great facility there. So,
Ife, thank you so much. And wow, that's a powerful concept. Forgiveness is, and sometimes it's not always, it's oftentimes hard to forgive when you've had such a long experience, or, there are things that you just maybe don't feel like you're willing to let go of. But I can say from personal experience that, that forgiveness piece can be very freeing, painful, and a process, right? So it doesn't happen overnight, but definitely I would say it's worth the effort put in. Elena, you were gonna say something.
Yeah. So one thing, as far as like challenges that have happened, I used to always think, why is this happening to me? And I was so angry because I felt, what this disability has taken from me. And once my mind shifted to how much it's given to me, in terms of the person that I am and how I can help others, when that mindset shifted, it, my whole perspective changed, and the lens that he gives me as a person and as a teacher and a parent, so I just, that's my advice, is to use those challenging moments and just try to think of all the good, the other good, to overcome them. And that perseverance that we have as siblings is just so special and so unique. And that empathy that we have is so unique and one that we only know. So,
yeah, thank you for that. You guys are hot in the chat box. I'm not able to like actually pay attention because it's just flashing down there. But I did catch one thing, and it is on the forgiveness, on Ife, on that lane that Ife brought up. Maybe you may need to forgive your brother or sister, because there could be some resentment there. So I'm just proposing that, I could just, if he's saying, you said your parents didn't know, there are things that you didn't know, and you didn't plan for things to be a certain way, and you just think the individual with the disability, it's not like they signed up for that experience. No one ever does. So what other advice? Heather? Yeah. Oh no, Jacqueline, come on. Right. Come on, Jacqueline.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of already opened the gate for mine. I think mine would be whatever you're feeling toward your sibling, toward your parents, toward you, honor that and know that what you are feeling is okay. You have every right to feel what you feel. If it's, seek forgiveness, like, if you feel like you've done wrong, forgive your parents, forgive your sibling, but you are allowed to feel whatever you feel. Forgive yourself if you need to.
Wow.
When I was 9, in one of her tantrums, my sister stepped on and killed our pet bird. And I was not allowed to scream at her. It was an accident. She didn't know what she was doing. Don't be mad. And, you can be mad. They are human. They're going to do human things. And everyone tries as best as they can. And that includes you. And so whatever you are feeling toward whatever situation, honor that and know that it is okay. And don't let people tell you how you should or shouldn't feel. You honor yourself too.
Yes, I love that. And I will say that, everything that you said was awesome and spot on. But one thing that caught my ear was allow yourself to feel. That right there, that's hitting me, because I think growing up with the emphasis being continually on someone else in a certain way, you almost kind of bottle it up, and I think that's a great example that you put out there. Your pet bird just died. Automatically, you want to mourn for your bird, right? One, you want to mourn for your bird, but also you want to have that initial reaction of like, brothers and sisters are, they can get at each other pretty aggressive, like, but that just brings up a really powerful point. And again, that's why I appreciate this space, because we are free to feel here. You have that permission, not that we have the authority to give you the permission, but it's really great to have a place where you can feel and feel around these topics, right? These are the things that have kind of been hidden away maybe. So thank you for striking that chord. Heather, I felt like you were going to say something.
Oh man, I feel like a lot of pressure's on me.
Oh no,
like
and
you
no, you don't need to inspire any books or anything. It's just, it's.
My advice would be, like Jacqueline said, allow yourself to feel, give yourself grace. Definitely. I know for me, I never wanted to bring up any discomfort to my parents because I didn't want to seem burdensome. Like my problems weren't as big as what my brother was going. A lot of my parents' attention was on my brother, so I didn't want to detract from that. But you matter. We all matter. There's the community of us, and we're all here to support each other. With places like this, there's like the Facebook page where SIBs validate other SIBs, experiences. And yeah, sometimes things suck. Sometimes, we celebrate the small achievements. So we're here. You're not alone. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Heather. We really appreciate that. So now we're going to segue and turn things over to Jeniece. But before we do that, and if I'm repetitive with this, oh well. I just so appreciate this panel. And again, it takes a lot of courage to share your personal story, something that you may not share frequently. And it takes a lot of courage to go in your feelings for other people, for the group. And so I just, again, want to say thank you for being a part of this BIPOC Sibling Roundtable conversation. I know that we're all affected by just the different stories and the advice that you all have shared on this evening. So thank you.
Oh my goodness, you guys are so incredible. Your stories are so incredible. I'm reading the comments, I'm listening, and I am not a sibling. Full disclosure, everybody, I am a parent, and this conversation has been extremely humbling to listen to your hearts and to have you guys share and be fully transparent. I appreciate you all for being here and for saying the things you said and keeping it real, because that's exactly what we need to hear as a parent. My children are still teenagers, so I look in, I'm listening like, how can I be better? What can I do differently? Let's have these conversations. And so I just want to go through and read some of these comments. And I also want to do something that we have not done before. I would like you guys to, everyone to turn their camera on if they're available. And I want us to see each other. We have an intimate group today. And I think it would be nice because the conversations in the chat right now are going so beautifully. The ways that you guys have, I'm going to read some of these. I would like for you guys to say your comments. I don't even know how to pronounce your name. Let me see. We got, if I'm going to say this right, Alfia. I don't think I would have a hard time forgiving my parents. Mostly, I think I have a hard time bringing up this subject with them for fear of making them sad by sharing with them how life is like being a sister. Has I felt it would open up all the subjects at once. I always was the kid who couldn't allow myself to feel that my context is affecting my life. It's only recently that I've been learning to feel, understand, and accept that it has an impact. To be able to even share something like this with you guys, I think is beautiful. There she is. Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry for my English. I am a French speaker. And thank you for organizing such a nice event. It's the first time I assist and talk with siblings like me. So yeah, it's really nice.
Well, we are happy to have you here. Thank you so much. And we just want to have this conversation. I would like you all to say hello. I want us all to just connect with each other. I think that we didn't have a lot of questions. We had more people exchanging energy and exchanging conversation. And I think that that's what you guys did this evening, is you created these safe space for people to share their hearts with each other. And I think that's just so amazing. And thank you for being here. How do you pronounce your name? Because I feel so bad because I butchered it.
Alfia.
Alfia, beautiful. Beautiful name, beautiful name. I see you on here, Lisa.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, always amazing. As I said earlier in the intro, that every one of you touched my soul in some way in your stories, and just being so open with just some of the words of just the things that you don't feel comfortable in saying, such as just having the resentment or feeling that you can't talk to your parents. It definitely is a lot. I'm a lot older than many of you, and what I think about at least 10 times a day is the idea that my life will go into an immediate pause, as my mother, who is in her early 70s, could either take ill or is no longer able to care for my brother, and her plan has always been me. And I think one of you mentioned earlier what it would look like if you did not outlive your brother or sister, and there is no plan. My mother, she just definitely feels that that will be me. I even took her to meet with an attorney for us to talk about estate planning, and had a sidebar conversation before we got there. And the attorney asked my mom, God forbids, Miss Matthews, if something happens, what is your plan? And she said, it's Lisa. So I have connected with different organizations for 10 plus years now, just to create the networks and to get to a point of understanding how to navigate the system. And clearly, in some ways, I feel that I failed, honestly, because I feel like I did all these things so that I could present this package to her, for her to understand that there are things out here and it's okay. Everything that you've been feeling, that it's okay to be here. And she still is in a space where she does not want to have those conversations. So I just thank you all so much for just being open and making me feel that it's okay for me to not be okay sometimes.
And if I could just make a comment on Alfia's, I'm still learning how to feel. This is the first time I've had this space. And, when like I said, I come off very monotone. They're like, wow, you handle things so great. And it's just because it's trained behavior on my end, where I've just learned to not say anything. And now, I have this space where I'm learning to feel and learning to talk about it. And it's still something that I'm working on, but it's okay if it takes longer. It's a process, it's a journey, and we all will get there in our own time, for sure.
And I think everyone should be able to start their cameras. I see, thank you, Jay. and Linnell, Adana, Nora, John. So good to see everyone. Alfia, thank you again. It's really so nice to just see who the community is who've been with us tonight. So those of us have been with our tissues just crying here in the background, but just what an amazing panel. Jeniece, were there a couple of questions in the panel? Sorry, in the chat. Sorry, not in the panel. There were a lot of such nice comments in the chat.
I know I'm talking about the same thing with the support and the systems. And you kind of went into that, Richard, and everybody answered that question and went into the future planning and bringing that up and how to bring that up. And we went live as well, and we had a couple of people asking about their feelings with significant others and having that dynamic. I mean, what is that like? And how do you choose? And do they accept? Is it something you bring up in the beginning? What is that like in a sibling's experience? Anybody want to hop in on that?
Well, Ife just got married, not to put her on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's okay, because I just had a conversation, interview on this, and I'm very blunt about it. It's a package deal. So I don't know how other people are with their siblings, but like I said earlier on, Sandra's my baby. She's always been like my plus one, and it was a no-brainer. And every single time I dated, it was always, oh, by the way, I have a sister with autism. What do you know about autism? So I'm like full-blown advocate, getting in there, educating you and getting to understand what it is that you know. And for the most part, I was lucky because I did, meet a lot of people that were very open to understanding, even if, they had never even understood that dynamics of any kind of disability, to be honest. And so I would say dating in my teenage.
Oh, I think she
freeze.
Oh, there she is.
Did I lose her?
Thanks.
It is right. 2 in the morning there.
Right. Almost 3 now.
There she is.
It is almost 3 now, but yeah, I'm pumped up, so I can go on. So it was easier, I think, teenage and young adults dating, because there was no pressure of settling down. It's just, you're dating, you're getting to know people, you want to inform them about your sibling and educate them about different types of special needs and so. So for me, I think navigating in my younger years were very easy. And I just felt like, oh, I was contributing to your own intelligence, because now you know. But adults-wise, having to decide to settle down and look at potential for the future, it was a bit harder, because now you're looking at the dynamics of not just bringing in your sibling into the mix. You're also going to consider the other party, their family dynamics, how they're going to accept that. This is forever, especially if you are, you're on that part of, I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to have this life. You need to be considerate about who you're going to bring in the mix. And it just cannot be anybody. That's the honest truth. It just cannot be anybody, because more than anything else, for me personally, marriage is more of an assignment, because I'm having to make you better and you make me better, and for us to infuse what we want our legacy to be. So it's not I'm going to go in, I'm going to come out. It's more important in that way. So dating was very different for me. Settling down was a whole nother issue. So some of the people I had dated, I wouldn't have considered to marry them, because I already knew that they might be flippant about this. they might not understand that she's with me, you know, for the better part of us being alive. So it's not a, oh, you get to know her today and then you drop her tomorrow. It's, you're taking me on, you're taking her on. And there might be that possibility of her living with us. So now I need to understand where you're coming from. I need to also be patient, not to, you know, to burden you, because especially if you're a neurotypical person that has never understood or never been in that dynamics, you won't get it. You're going to see me like you know, carrying on a savior mentality. You're going to see so much pressure. You're going to see, you know, more the negative than the positive. And if I'm not communicating why I am taking on this role, you won't get it. So I was very patient with the people I dated. And I didn't just look out for their personality and their character of how they handled my sister. I was very curious about how their family also handled, you know, her being in that space, because I mean, I'm from a very culture-wise, we're in your face. When you're marrying somebody, it's almost like you're marrying the person's family. So you need, it's not just you and them. It's you, them, their uncles, their brothers, their grandparents, their everything. So I was very curious about where marriage was going to lead me, but I wasn't, what's the word? I wasn't in a hurry. I wasn't in a hurry. I knew it was something I would like, but I wasn't in a hurry. And I knew that with her, it had to be someone special. It had to be someone that would not just see it as, oh, okay, a responsibility or some sort of like a job role. It's somebody that's going to see it as, oh, she will be my sister then. I will have another person to love. I would have an extension of Ife. And that was what I was, you know, that was what I was communicating to every single person I was dating. And I needed that person to be my friend first, because I needed that person to understand where I was coming from and why I had that sort of empathy and why I required them to have some sort of love for her. So I was open to, you know, I took her, I'm very open about my sister. There's no hiding her anywhere. And she's larger than life. Like, Boo sees you, she's going to give you a hug. She's going to ask you a million questions. And, you know, she has ukulele, so she might ask you the same questions over and over again. So it's so hard not to love her. And for my husband, we were friends prior to when I was in school. And by the time I moved back to Nigeria, he was one of those people that always just looked out for her, and we'll go out, he will take her out, and he would want to do stuff around her. And this is before even asking me out. So I already knew that, oh, okay, he likes her as a person. There's no pity party here. He likes her as a person. And for me, that was the start of, wow, I need to understand this, not to fall in love with this alone. I need to understand that people are willing to understand, and people are willing to see your sibling in that light first, and then they can be also separate from you. And for me, I think I was lucky with him, but I didn't have a rush. I think if I had been engaged when I was like 24, it's like a decade away. So I knew for a fact that if I'd gotten married any of those times, I probably would have gotten married to the wrong person.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, Ife. Like, you really, you gave us a real rundown of what we should be looking for, just even things to consider before you even enter into something. Even when you consider your significant other and the challenges and the different opportunities that you have when you're selecting somebody that you're gonna spend the rest of your life with, and knowing you have a sibling that's joining you on this journey, this forever journey. It's not just about you. So I appreciate you sharing with us about that and everything else. I appreciate you, Richard, for moderating this evening. Thank you so much, Lisa, for bringing this, for opening us up so beautifully. Emily, thank you. You made sure that we could all show our faces tonight for the first time ever. And I appreciate you guys all for being here for that. I know it's late. I know some people have already stepped off, but I really appreciate all of you for being here this evening. Emily put in some information about the Sibling Leadership Conference that is coming up. I want you guys to make sure that you register and you join so you can meet more siblings. Like, this is what it's about, is connecting with each other. If you're a parent, if you're a provider, if you're a sibling, like, this information is for everybody. We all could learn a little bit more. We all could be you can never know enough, and we don't know what we don't know. So coming into a space open, with an open heart, with open minds, and knowing that we're all here not to judge each other, but to just love each other and find new ways to work together and to connect with each other. I truly appreciate each one of our panelists this evening. You guys are absolutely amazing. We will have this for a replay so we can be able to share it, and you guys can share it and listen to it. From the bottom of my heart, I just thank you. I'm so appreciative for this event, and I'm so appreciative for the Sibling Support Project, for the Sibling Leadership Network, and for Special Needs Siblings, and for us all coming together tonight. I hope you guys have a great evening. We'll send out a survey. I know we ran over a little bit, but it was so worth it. I do not regret it at all. I send you guys a bunch of love. If you want to come off and say good night to everyone, you definitely can. You can unmute yourselves.
Thank you so much.